We are headed for the last session, the last day, fixed connection over Kvarken. We have 3 speakers. Joachim Strand, member of the Finnish Parliament and chairman of the Committee for the Future. Esa Eranti, Doctor of Technology. And Antti Talvitie, consultant. And we will start with a video from Antti, who's not been able to be here today. And after that, we'll give the stage to Esa.
Good day. Unfortunately, I can't be in Vasa today, but I'm pleased that I can meet and talk with you over this video. And it is, I will take my mask off. It is common knowledge that the fixed link from Vasa to Umeå over the Gulf of Finland, what I call Kvarkenväg, has been long in the papers and in the minds of people. Esa Eranti, my friend, and I have also worked on this off and on over the past few years and present this study to you. No interest other than our own interest has paid for this study, and we are thankful to Kvarkenrådet that and Joachim Strand and Matthias Lindström and the local newspapers that they have taken interest in the study. I also want to thank Klaus Bremer, who has been an invaluable mentor to us. So, who I am? I am from Ostrobothnia, and I have worked both in the United States and in Finland. I was a professor in the United States for about 15 years, and I met Esa Eranti in the 70s when he was a graduate student at State University of New York at Buffalo, when I was chairman of the civil engineering department there. In the 80s, I worked in the Finnish Highway Administration, now known as Väylä, as director of highway construction and maintenance. Thereafter, I had a short stint in the private sector, but then went to work in the World Bank, and I worked there until my retirement age. Right now, I'm a consultant, for example, in Ramboll, Sweden, where I'm a team leader for the financial bank's technical advisor for the Muurlalohja PPP, Private-Public Partnership motorway, which is about 50 kilometers long. Now, what is the content of the presentation? My presentation is on the PowerPoint slide. I will talk briefly about the transport vision, then about the benefit cost analysis, and the effect of the Kvarkenväg on the society and the economy. briefly touch on political consequences, political dimension of the work, and then the externalities which are part of this road. And then I conclude. So, the vision of this of the Kvarken Weg, broadly stated, is simple. It is from wealth distribution to wealth creation. Or the punchline in Finnish is tulonjaosta tulontekoon. And the map you see shows the vision. It aims to expand the markets and reduce the costs of transportation and logistics. For Finland and for Finnish industries, access to the other Scandinavian countries and to Europe is important, and this Kvarken Weg would facilitate that. In the reverse direction, for Sweden and Norway, it would be a key to the markets in Finland and to Russia. We'll emphasize the freight traffic simply because it is important for industries and trade. We will not forget, and we think the passenger traffic is also important for business and for pleasure. So I need to say that I make this presentation in English. The slides are, of course, in Finnish and Swedish, you can see there, and I may confuse these languages every once in a while. So now over to the project economy and to benefit cost analysis. Jules Dupuy, who founded and created the benefit cost analysis, says that utility is the only one that what people are willing to pay for. So that means that any project's monetary benefit cost ratio should be more than 1. That is, benefits should be greater than the costs over the lifetime of the project. In the insert here is a picture. It shows the two alternative alignments that we are considering. The blue line is from Replut to Osnes. It is the cheaper one because it can rely on the shallow grounds in the Gulf of Bothnia. It costs about 3 billion euros. The red line is more expensive, about 5 million euros. It is also from Replut to Holmsund. Holmsund is important because there is the Kvarken port on the Swedish side there, and also a rail terminal. So, just the diagram about the benefit cost analysis. It is important to understand it, even though it is somewhat technical. On the right-hand side picture, there is a case B where the users of transport network are paying the full market prices. And you will see in the matrix below that both the benefits to the country and the benefits to the users are the same. In this case, 9,600 euros per day. Very little, but the traffic volumes are also very small, about 1,000 trips per day. On the left-hand side, there is a case where the users are subsidized. That is, instead of paying the 48 euros after the improvement, they would be only paying 16 euros, and the rest, the difference, would be a subsidy to the users. Now you will see that nonetheless, for the traffic painted in yellow, there would be a gain to the country as a whole. But there is also cost, because this is the red portion, because there are too many users who are not paying the cost that it takes to provide the service. And you will see that the country as a whole will gain a benefit only 9,000 euros, which is 600 euros per day less. If you take both directions, it is 1,200. Over the year, it is over 200,000. And from the diagram, you can also calculate that there is an income transfer from the economy as a whole to the users, which is 32,000 euros per day, a substantial amount of money. And we think that if the traffic volumes are very large, then income transfers and the losses would also be large. I'm purposefully putting the traffic volume so low because that is roughly the predicted number of users for the high-speed rail link being planned between Helsinki and Turku. So that is for the comparison. So using these ideas, I have made this matrix. Many numbers. I'm not going to go through all of them. I only point out a few things. There is both alternatives. Ostnes Replot, 3 billion euros. Holmsund Replot, 5 million euros. And the what is called Entimestock, a 1-hour train from Helsinki to Turku, or between those two cities. And it has this name because the aim is that the train would be so fast as to cover the distance of 170 kilometers in 1 hour. In the right-hand corner, in the brown field, there is the traffic forecast that I will use. And it is based on the current traffic through the Finnish harbors. There are about 2.2 million buses and cars from through the Finnish harbors, and about 1.1 million trucks of various lengths. I made the assumption that 10% of the buses and cars would use this Kvarken Väg, and 6.5% of the trucks would use this fixed link. Now, assuming that the EU comes in with their 20% share and adding up after that the cost of maintenance and other miscellaneous expenses, come to the income side. And the income side comes from the tolls. We assume that this bridge road would be a toll road, a toll bridge. And the tolls are between about 100 to 200 euros for cars and 400, 500 for the trucks. And these are in line what Wasa Line, for example, charges for the trip across the Gulf of Bothnia. Then I also made the assumption that both Finland and Sweden would come with equity share, which is about the same size as the EU share. And after this, summing up and subtracting, the end result is that using the tariff 1 and the cheaper alternative, no subsidy would be required. Tolls would cover it, and also, of course, the state-provided equity share on the for the more expensive Holmsund Replot alignment. There is a chance that a subsidy of, in the worst case, about 26 million euros per year would be required. That is not that much, considering how much the Finnish and in Swedish car users, truck users pay in terms of their special excise taxes for fuel. Then on the third column, there is an example of the Tunninjuna Entimestock, and again the same procedure. We have I have assumed that the ticket prices would be either 20 or 30 euros. Current prices are between 16 and 20 euros. And at the end, when everything added up, the high-speed rail would require an annual subsidy of 90 to 110 million euros. And there is really no way to avoid that. It will be there because the high-speed rail will not take any goods traffic like the Kvarken Väg would. So I will come back to this profitability of the fixed link between Umeå and Vasa. it is a surprising result. So there are some problems in the benefit cost analysis regarding the high-speed rail link. And I mentioned only two. I'm not going to go through all of them. The one is that for all the high-speed rails in Europe, the costs have been exceeded by 25 to 100%. They have been costly. And who knows, will the high-speed rail between Helsinki and Turku be built for the 3.5 million euros as estimated? Of course, that's true for everything. These are cost estimates. The true cost will be known after the bids are in, when the contractors say that we would do this job for this price. The other thing that is of interest, that if the train link is built, that would nearly decimate the current private bus services between those two cities. There are 80 bus trips a day between those two cities. Some of them are fast, that is point to point from Helsinki to Turku. Others may stop on the way. But nonetheless, there's an extensive service, and now we would be in the paradoxical situation that with the taxpayer monies, private businesses would be substantially harmed. And that is an important consideration that has often ignored, that there are these income transfers and losses to others if projects are subsidized. This picture shows the goods export from the Finnish provinces, and you will see that it is a funnel shape directed toward Kvarken, and that the central Finland and parts of Ostrobothnia lag in their exports. And I hypothesize that the only reason this is so is because the accessibility and the costs of logistics are too high for them to produce competitively goods to the export market. So this funnel-shaped transport corridor, logistic corridor, implies that there are areas in Finland which are underserved in terms of transport services and in terms of logistics. And therefore, the question arises, would it be worthwhile to subsidize this fixed link from Vasa to Umeå? Come to that later. So, looking at then the transport corridor westward from Finland, you will see, and we know, that it would be an important improvement in the competitive ability of the Finnish industries. And it would be a challenge for the central Finland and Ostrobothnia to develop products and perhaps spawn industries that can produce products competitively to the export market. So it is an economic thing. There would be new industries and there would be new products and made perhaps with greater productivity. On the downside, there are the environmental issues. Right now, the carbon dioxide especially is on the table. But so we are talking here of a risk investment and how it balances with technical development. But undoubtedly, the fixed link would be good for the Finnish economy. Looking at then both sides, the corridors to west and to east, you will see that both for Finland and Sweden and Norway, the transportation costs would be less and the entire logistic chain would cost less. There would be also more advantageous passenger trips for pleasure or for business, and especially the reliability of the shipments of goods would be independent of weather. They would be independent of strikes, independent of timetables or icebreakers. And we think that this would increase the economic growth in the Österbotten and Västerbotten, including in Norway's corresponding areas. The project itself would require high-quality employees, and that in turn would create educational opportunities from vocational education to university level in the area. So there are many things which are on the upside for building this link. I mentioned that there's a political dimension to this. There are political consequences. This would be a big step forward in Nordic cooperation. The Kvarken would be a significant regional policy investment. It would certainly help these areas of central parts of Finland, Sweden, and Norway to become more competitive with the southern parts of the countries. Again, on the downside, there would be costs for the protection of the environment. And as I showed in the benefit cost matrix, in the beginning, Kvarken would require subsidies. And the question is, who would pay for these subsidies? On the other side, also the ferry traffic and the sea transport would experience losses. Should these losses be compensated? Well, because the investment on the fixed link, the logistics costs and warehousing costs would be much less. And these savings would pay for the subventions, and perhaps also for the losses of those who experience losses in elsewhere in the country. But I would like to point out that these would have to be temporary, just while the industry and the economy adjust to the new environment. So there will be compensations for losses for a period of time. There would have to be subventions for a period of time once the fixed link is being built and opens. There are other externalities. There may be more. I mentioned only 2 or 3. One is the protected areas in the Kvarken. They are UNESCO designated areas, and it is in everybody's interest to protect them. The climate change also is a threat. We think that developments in vehicle technology over the next 10-15 years will solve the carbon dioxide problem. It will be that long, even though the technology is available now with the hydrogen and with electricity, but it will take time to change over the vehicle park. And again, emphasize that there would be economic growth in the Bottenviken, in the Gulf of Finland area on both sides. And I would like to point out that the high-speed rail would not bring positive externalities, because whatever gains will be made along the rail line would be income transfers from elsewhere in the country, because it will, like I mentioned, the high-speed rail would require substantial subsidies. So, summing up at this point, the title is that extensive public participation, citizen participation, is absolutely necessary. It has to start early, and it has to be continuous, because these fast and reliable transport links to all directions will cause dislocations in the economy. That is the upside. On the downside, there are the costs for protection of the environment. But I think, and Esa will talk more about that, they can be handled successfully, but it requires that everybody is heard and their viewpoints are heard and incorporated. Logistics and transportation costs will be reduced. For example, right now, Finland's logistics costs are about 25 milliard euros per year, a big sum. When you compare it to the gross national product, it is about a little bit over 11% of the Finnish gross national product. And compared to Sweden and Norway, the percentage is a little bit more than 7. So Finland is clearly in a disadvantage. And the Kvarken aims to help this one, make Finland more competitive in the export markets. I mentioned that in Denmark, the logistics costs are about a little bit below 7%. In Germany, 8.5%. And on the EU average is 6.8. So half of that, what Finland has to pay. Harvard professor Schumpeter coined the words creative destruction. And the creative destruction occurs when new products, new ways of doing things will replace the old ones. And this will occur also here because the shipment times will be reduced and they are independent of timetables, strikes, ice breaking, and weather. And like I mentioned, some harbors and some shipping companies will experience losses or harm. And I discussed it already that these losses may have to be compensated over a period of time. So, come to the conclusion. Finland need not be an island. There has been a discussion lately in Finland if Finland is an island or is it not. We think that Finland need not be an island. Kvarken is a promising investment. It would have large and positive consequences, wider impacts. The fixed link between Wasa and Umeå will reduce the transportation and logistics costs, as it will tie together many countries. And it is more than likely that it will encourage economic development in the region. But with this, it has to be recognized that Kvarken is a risk investment. It will require subventions in the beginning when the economy adjusts to the changed environment. There are other risks, for example, stagnation in the world's economy when there would be less trade and less traffic. Finland's economy may stagnate or slow down. We have had some examples of that in the recent weeks, and there will be other unknown risks, political or health. These have to be dealt with at a time. So, speaking technically, Kvarken must be built as a design-build or PPP, private-public partnership project. That will guarantee that there is competition, that there is an adequate distribution of risks, that new technologies will be used to keep the costs in check. And then in bold font, I have made observation that if the very conservative traffic forecast is doubles, instead of there being 600 cars on the bridge per day, there would be 1,200. Instead of there being 200 trucks, there would be 400. Still a low volume road. Altogether only 400 vehicles per day. Not much. But if the traffic forecast doubles, then the tariff 2, which is reasonable and conservative, will pay for the whole thing. There would be no need for subsidies, no need for the state equity share, and if the state is made in the beginning, it can claw it back during the lifetime of the project. this, of course, is not based on models yet. But a friend of mine, I asked him to make a quick traffic assignment. What would it look like? And he said that it is possible that 25% of the goods traffic from Finland would use this Vasa-Umeå link. So there is upside potential, strong upside potential. And lastly, I repeat that extensive public participation, citizen participation is absolutely necessary, started early and have to be continuous. They have to be part of the design of this connection. And in that sense, citizen participation, public participation is part of the product. Everybody, every interest group is to be heard, their viewpoints incorporated to the extent possible, so that in the end, the whatever is the outcome would enjoy widespread social acceptance. Jag vill tillägga att Kvarkenvägen är inte en sak, inte a single issue thing. Anslutna investeringar kan göra Kvarkenvägen mera framgångsrik och betydelsefull för både Finland och Sweden. På Finlands sida, riksvägen 3, Europa 12, borde byggas som motorväg från Tammerfors till Uleåborg. Och skopa upp Seinäjoki på västra sidan, slå ihop med riksvägen 8 i Vasas utkanterna och sen fortsätta till Uleåborg. Vägen skulle förbättra tillgänglighet längs motorväg. Och det skulle erbjuda, servera kommuner och städer i närheten av vägen. Tammerfors är en stor stad på finska skalan och till exempel lastbilen från Tammerfors till Umeå ska ta samma tid som lastbilen från Tammerfors till Helsingfors. Men därefter det måste vänta på fartyg eller färjan. Och lastbilen eller containers på svenska järnvägar, SJ järnväg, skulle vara i södra Sverige eller i Tyskland en dag tidigare än annars. Så ett logistik fördel. I andra ändan, nära Uleåborg är den andra högteknologicentrum i Finland. Söderut kommer Brahe stad, grundad av Per Brahe. Och det är en vacker historisk stad. Men den finns SSAB, Modern Stilverk, där. Lite söderut i Karleby, det finns Karlebys djuphamn som jag tror är den största, eller en av de största bulkhamnar i Finland. Det finns också speciella faciliteter för vederskytta varor där i Kokkola, Karleby hamn. Och måste komma ihåg också att Anders Schudenius var kyrkoherre i Karleby. Han var också riksdagsman och han skrev böcker om demokrati, ekonomi, liberalism och även vaccination. Han var en renässansman i sin tid. Hans bok Den nationella vinsten kom ut 1765. 10 år före Adam Smith publicerade hans bok The Wealth of Nation, som ansågs vara en nyskapande bok om national economy, modern national economy. Och den Vasa är lite äldre än Karleby. Karleby är 400 år detta år. Vasa är 415 år kanske. Och Vasa hade också en, kan man säga, färgrik förflutna. Vasa är från kungfamiljen Vasa, namnet. Därefter, på svenska tiden, därefter på ryska tiden, det var Nikolajstad. Och det här är en stor betydelse i Finlands självständighet när den kom tillbaka till namnet Vasa. Så, på kusten det finns mycket finsk och svensk historia. Där bor flitiga och kunniga människor med innovativa egenskaper. Kvarkenvägen med andra infrastrukturinvesteringar skulle låsa upp resurser i regionen. Mänskliga, kulturella och ekonomiska. Och med dessa tankar jag ska avsluta. God fortsättning på dagen, ni alla.
Big thank you to Antien. Now the floor is yours to comment on the video. Your presentation too. Okay, you can take that before your presentation. Anyone with direct comments or questions or? There's one. Matthias.
Yes, thank you. Interesting presentation also from Antti. This was very Finnish based, but you also have to take in consideration all the things that are happening on the Swedish side. And we have big opportunities that we also have been looking into within the Kvarken Council on connecting our region also to the big harbors on the Norwegian coast. Now they have ambitions, for example, to electrify the cross-link railway from Sundsvall to Trondheim. That will be a very huge opportunity also for a fixed link over the Kvarken Strait. And also we have already established good cooperation with Nordlands Fylkeskommune and Helgeland with transports from Mo i Rana and Mosjö over here to the Kvarken region. So I think taking these things also in consideration when looking more deeply into this will make this even more beneficial in the long run, I think.
Good. Any other questions? No?
Okay.
Then the floor is yours. Your presentation? That's ready?
Yeah, let's go. Antti and myself have often talked about the fake economics that are used to support infrastructure projects in the Helsinki capital area. And what really got me thinking on this was this analysis of myself. Based on these assumptions, the 1 hour bullet train, actually it is more than 1 hour, but the Finnish taxpayer has to come up with 100 euros for each 30 euro ticket bought on that train. So this is an outrage, and we have something better. Okay. Antti talked a lot about economics. I talk more about construction technology. I talk about costs and schedule and on environmental issues. And then I come back to economics, but from a different perspective. Antti has worked more on the public sector. I have worked more on private investors. So I take this kind of blunt, straightforward analysis. This is my background. I'm an Arctic offshore and coastal engineering expert. And I also have developed an expertise on environmental issues that have been connected especially to hydraulic construction projects. I'm a McGraw-Hill author, and I have been involved in many projects, big and small. And some of them are in the $1 billion or $10 billion category. The Öresund link, for example, that was my first expert job. I'm the chief designer, chief engineer of the Tahkoluoto offshore wind farm project. And that has been designed for heavy ice conditions. And I have 45 years of experience in international projects. And I have a lot of experience also on research and development. Half of it, which I have made myself on my own money, just like the gentleman here. Yeah. So we started to study sea bottom to see where and how to construct. And we came up with two alternative routes. These are basic elements in our study, but of course these will change when our vision gets sharper. And in any case, we will have long bridges, 20, 30 kilometers of bridges, and then we have embankment roads, perhaps a few tunnels, small tunnels, but the tunnels are expensive for this kind of conditions. And we have also obtained some attention and support from the Swedish side. So it is not only the Finnish side that is interested in this, but also the Swedish side see the benefits. And actually this is nothing new. There are bridges around the world, large bridges. And then we have bridges in Sweden, and also causeways, embankment roads, and in Finland. Here we see, for example, in Helsinki, big causeways, beautiful road. And actually, Helsinki has been built on filled sea bottom, much of it, a significant portion. So this is nothing new. The circumstances in the Kvarken area are actually very favorable for bridge construction because we have shallow water, we have firm bottom conditions to build on. And also the wave conditions are quite favorable because of the limited fetches. The offshore construction, there is always a wave limit, and based on what we have learned, we can deal it better here than, for example, in Tahkoluoto. We do have occasionally very heavy ice conditions, and we have a seasonal timetable for construction. That means that during the winter time, no hydraulic construction, practically no. Some embankment road construction could be made, but not these heavy lifts offshore. But we are used to ice conditions. There are actually 200 ice-resistant offshore structures in the Gulf of Bothnia, some of which are in very heavy ice conditions, and they have been there half a century, or some of them have been. And we have experience, and we have also studied the ice forces. For example, here in 1986, we had a very heavy winter. We got a storm, and we just could measure. We had a cone that measured ice forces, instrumented cone, around this Kemi 1 lighthouse, and we got it everything. We got a perfect ridge interaction events, we got at-freeze pond failures, we got everything, and nobody else has got it. Full-scale data. So this is the basic idea. Everybody knows embankment road. It is just that it gets heavy if it gets hit with big waves, so water depth is limited. And then we have to go with bridges. This is the system. We have a steel cell, ice-reinforced steel cell. And the shape is conical to control ice load. That if you have a vertical structure, that takes 3 times more ice force than a conical structure. And also, with a conical structure, you can eliminate ice-induced vibrations. So then we have a ring footing, and we have filled this up with crushed rock. And that means that you have a huge mass, very massive foundation that acts as a solid entity. So this is kind of a new hydraulic construction. And construction is like clockwork. You start with making bases. There may be many groups working simultaneously. And at the same time, you are manufacturing foundations. They come from various yards, and they are floated to the site where a heavy-duty crane, offshore crane, lifts them on the base. And then they are filled with crushed rock right there and surrounded by erosion protection. And then you just come, you can actually place them very accurately. It is just amazing. But then you can come with your bridge sections, and the same crane lifts those on place. So this is simple, brutally simple, straightforward construction. This is, we did this first to build a pilot turbine, wind turbine to Tahkoluoto in 2010. And then we added 10 more in 2017. Now, I'm not going to in detail into this scheme. It actually depends quite a lot on whether you do design and build or whether you do public-private partnership. But I will highlight some issues. And the first issue is this pre-feasibility study. We have shown you a vision that is based on our own experience, and of course we know roughly what things cost. And I have gone kilometer to kilometer to estimate the cost. But there has to be a pre-feasibility study so that the banker will also, and the decision maker will believe. And there will be drawings, and there will be weights, and there will be construction systems, and there will be various assessments. This is the most important step, because if we get the concept right, I think it will take 4 to 6 people from Sweden and Finland to guide this through. We will buy, for example, sea bottom geotechnical investigations, and we will use other experts. But if we go into this pre-feasibility phase to develop a good concept, then we can screw the project to the end. It goes easy. But if there is a flaw, if there is a problem in the concept, then you hit a mess. It is the same thing as this nuclear power plant in Loviisa. So you have to have a good concept, and you have to review it. And there has to be independent review so that somebody will believe that, yeah, this is what we want to do. And then they will make a decision. This is a small effort, but then there is a big effort on the design phase, so that the investment decision can be made. And there are 2 things that I would like to point out. First one is that when you do this kind of a project, there is huge pressure to add things into the concept. And then there is a huge risk that you make a serious mistake. So keep it simple, add things later when the project is through. Yeah, that is, you have seen many big projects fail, and that is because things have been added and fantastic ideas have been brought in that were not so fantastic after all. Then the other issue is that we deal with a number of bureaucrats. And every bureaucrat has the power to stop this project for 5 years in a legal dispute. So he has your balls. And this is really serious, because I have seen many projects just unreasonable costs have been added. And actually taxpayer has been brought in to pay these outrages also. And fortunately, in this case, we have a cost-saving opportunity. This project has to be approved by the Swedish parliament and by the Finnish parliament. And power doesn't belong to the bureaucrat, it belongs to people and the parliaments. And they can overrule any unreasonable demand. And then we go into construction. And now we are dealing with, at least in some parts, with international construction companies. And those are ruthless bastards. And they come in cheap, and they use different strategies to reach their financial goals. And one strategy is drag your feet and play stupid. And just to get the project of balance, the schedule messed up, and then you can start squeezing balls. We can solve this problem, but it costs. Yeah. I learned this from Russia. I learned it from crooks that had been milking the Soviet system. And they were very good. They were very straight face, explaining why things went wrong and who is to blame. But really, this is something that has to be managed. One way to manage it is to keep it simple. And, you know, you're awake at night to make the decision when it is needed. It is not, you are not on holiday when you are in active phase of a project. And another thing is that although also the Nordic companies have learned these tricks from the international construction companies, perhaps it is safer to use companies that we know, and they know how to handle these international construction operators. Okay. Here I have the basis of our cost estimates. If and when these are the concept is kind of in paper, and everything gets more accurate, there will be a more accurate cost estimate. But I know what these foundations cost. Antti knows, and I know what hydraulic construction costs. And Antti knows what a bridge deck costs, and he knows how to build a highway on firm ground. So, and then we have added, this is the capitalistic way, you prepare for things that you don't foresee. You have reserved something for that, and then you also add something for planning, permitting, and project management. All those numbers are not in the investment calculations of, for example, infrastructure projects in the capital Helsinki area. Then about shipping. I know that Luleå and Kokkola harbors, they would like to see Panamax size ships that can come through Danish waters all the way to their ports. And certainly we are not proposing anything that would harm Swedish or Finnish industries. But here my graphic designer is showing a bridge span of 900 meters. And I don't think we need that. 300 meters is quite enough for a Panamax ship. And I have been involved with those, and this kind of navigation widths are used elsewhere. and even with LNG carriers that are something else than these ore carriers or bulk carriers. And of course, people have to navigate here, also local people, and we can build small bridges to get the currents running and the shipping done in the embankment sections. And also the bridge will be high enough at other places for small pleasure boats going through. And there is another reason, not only shipping, but of course you have to consider waves and icing and things like that. So it has to be a little bit higher than normal. And then about environmental impacts. I have developed a method to estimate environmental impact, and this is based on the change that a project has on the richness and diversity of the nature. And I use this kind of eco-scale approach. In this case, projects usually have positive and negative impacts. Now I look only at negative impacts. And I calculate, or I could say I calculate total destruction, environmental destruction in years and square kilometers. That is what I'm measuring. And then I have an exponential scale here, and you can see that if we are hit by a very large asteroid, like the Earth has been hit before, millions of years ago, then that's a big issue. And then a full-scale nuclear war that creates a nuclear winter, and we can see that the issue of peace is also very important. As far as this change in the richness and the diversity of nature is concerned. Then we come to climate change, and that is an exponential thing. If we have a small climate change, not very big impact. If we have 3-degree climate change, that's my estimate. And if we have 5 degrees, that's much more than this one. So exponential, we have to limit. But there is a reasonable limit. And then we also, if we go downwards, let's say a few steps, 3-4 orders of magnitude, we come to see that in Finland also releasing continuous release of pollutants into waters, that's a big issue. And also the footprint effect, that is important. And then I would like to make a note that there are a lot of bureaucratic environmental details that are used for bureaucratic power purposes, but in this case they have very little impact. So what do we have as far as this project is concerned? And now I point out that Antti has worked on the public sector, and I have worked with real investors. And as far as construction, water construction is concerned, there is very little impact. You have some suspension, but if you get a storm there at the Kvarken area, you get much more suspension. If you look at what a river brings down on a single day, a big river here in Finland or Sweden, at the peak of the flood, that is much more, several times more suspension. So we have some local suspension effects that are also short term. That is not very important. And then we have the construction creates noise, but that noise is comparable to sea traffic. We are actually not exploding anything, but even if we have to explode, we have to consider that when a big wave, a plunging breaker, comes to a shallow and it plunges, that is 1,000 times more than what an explosion can create, that as far as energy is concerned. And when you get a lightning strike, that is also 10 times more than what you get when you explode something. And then we have the, of course, there are marginal benefits also on the environment. But then we come to the big issue, and that is the footprint effect of the project. And yeah, the project has a footprint of 1 to 2 square kilometers. And that is of the same order of magnitude as you create more land every year because land is rising here. And now I would like to, or we can discuss if there are, I would like to invite a discussion. What other issues do people see here? I spoke with a local fisherman and I thought that we can solve his problems. And but I would really like to hear. Some people say that they are experts in environmental impacts in water environment. I would like to hear, and then we discuss how big this impact is and to get forward. Oh, there are other impacts also. We have a social impact, big social and economic impact. And we believe that as far as carbon dioxide is concerned, this is a fairly neutral project. And we hope that the technology will solve this issue. And then we have this construction that will it will involve carbon dioxide, but that is only 1/10 of what Helsinki Energy produces every year. And most of this is due to, or at least half of it is from steel manufacturing. Actually, steel is recycled already, but I have taken it into account. I have calculated 1 ton of carbon dioxide for ton per ton of steel. And well, yeah, I came up with 300,000 tons of carbon dioxide, and then Helsinki Energy has 10 times more, but both numbers are coming down with time. Certainly there is some disturbance. People often forget, they calculate how much Pisara Rata or something else saves in time 3 minutes or something per passenger. That is their optimistic view, and then they get a huge value for that time. But they forget in their calculations that there is a huge mess right now in the Helsinki area. Roads are blocked and everybody is sitting in the car and thinking, when do I get to work? And now it is COVID time. Think about this happening in a normal year. Well, there certainly is a scenery effect. If we build a bridge, there will be a scenery effect. And if you look from outside, whether it is beautiful or not, that's a matter of taste. But certainly, if you use the road, that most people will do, that is a stunning experience. I went to look yesterday, I know what I'm speaking about. So what do we have? If we build this fixed connection, we can get industrial products to their customers fast, reliably, and economically. So this is the Achilles heel of our industry, and I think the Swedes would also like to see a little bit of advantage, because when we are competing in the international market, it is marginals that count. You either win or lose. And I also like to think that one day a factory, for example, in Austria blows up, and then a shop here in Wasa, for example, has the solution. And in these kind of cases, there is a call, can you help? And then the factory says, yes, we can help. And the next day, a truck leaves with 2 drivers. It is there in Austria in 2 days. And the industrialist there in Austria, he is frustrated with the German ways of doing business. That means that horrible arguments with lawyers and things like that. He is also frustrated with French arrogance and Italian unreliability. So a new business connection is created, and yeah, that's how things happen. Very often you get your foot on the between the door and you are in, because we Finnish are more reliable than those and Swedes. Actually, it is Finnish, Swedes, and Norwegians that, as far as I understand from my customers, so that count as reliable. Yeah. Well, there will be an explosion of economic activity in the Kvarken area, and it will radiate all the way to half of Finland and all the way to central Sweden and central Norway. And there will be new challenge, new learning, especially for the metal industry. And now I come to the point that I disagree with Antti. I don't like tolls. The people who use roads, they pay $8 billion euros here in Finland in taxes, and 10 billion euros in Sweden. And then they get back here in Finland 1 billion euro. So I think the taxpayer, those who use roads, they should get better value for their tax dollar. And what a better way to support our industries that are dependent on high logistics cost than to build this. To conclude, this fixed connection, Kvarken fixed connection is technically reasonable to plan and construct. If you prioritize it, you do like Chinese all out or a capitalist or even the Russians, although they have a quality issue. You can do it in 5 years. But in our system, the usual way, 10 years perhaps. The present cost estimates is 3 to 5 billion euros, depending on whether we can find a reasonable solution or we have to go around everything. And but this connection does not have serious environmental impacts, and it will create jobs, prosperity, and new opportunities for the industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Esa. Joachim Strand, Chairman of the Committee for the Future, 5 years. Is it realistic to you, or?
When we get the decisions, I'm sure that it will take only 5 years. But first of all, I really want to thank Esa and Antti for your excellent work. Excellent work. And as you said in the beginning, no one has ordered this work from you. The City of Vasa, the Kvarken Council, no one has paid a cent to you. And we are so extremely happy, and we have had a lot of contact during the summer with you, and I'm sure that we will continue with that. And it's also so fabulous to hear your attitude when you talk about wealth creation, not wealth distribution. Puhutaan siis tulon teosta, ei tulon jaosta, värdeskapande i stället för resursfördelande. And this is something we don't hear much about when we talk about professors and we discuss in different economical panels. You also used the word fake economics when you talked about infrastructure projects in the city of Helsinki, for instance, and that's something that we think it's refreshing to hear someone with your background, with your excellent expertise, and to take these things up. Just a few comments. I know that we are soon out of time, but if we think about the budget, 3 to 5 billion euros, that's not actually that much. If we think about this government, we have now already had 5 additional budgets. 5 lisätalousarviota, we have 5 tilläggsbudgetar. Only the 4th of these was 5.5 billion euros. So far more than this project. Only one of these 5 additional budgets. So I think that we should not be afraid of the sum, not be afraid of the money, because the money exists. And as you said, this is something that creates more value, not only for Västerbotten and Österbotten, but for the whole Nordic countries and the north of Europe. And it's also extremely interesting when we heard Matthias talking earlier about the potential and the connection to the Norwegian harbors and the new global transport routes. And that's something that we have also discussed with Esa and Antti. So from the City of Vasa, from the Kvarken Council, we very much look forward to continue this work with you, and we will do this.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's all, but we are ready for questions.
And comments. I'm sure there are a lot of comments or questions. Not yet. Matthias. No, Rita.
Rita first, yeah, thank you. It was very interesting. Like I said, we talked earlier this week, and I promised that I will read this, and I will also set my comments to you later on. I also pointed out 2 things. The fake economics, like Mr. next to you, that's something that we share the concern whether all the infrastructure investments in Finland are counted right. So I believe that's something we should be looking into. And also I like the idea of simple construction. Simple construction when talking about something this big, and you can still call it a simple construction. So maybe this is something what we can here regionally consider, that it's not a mountain very high. The 1 year planning, pre-planning feasibility study, I have to say that 1 year is an underestimate, because we've been working with big projects and we know that there will be issues we wish to handle earlier than later. Like you said, there should not be too many add-ons. So I suggest that whoever will take this ball, if it's Matthias or Joachim, so reserve some more time, and reserve time also for land logistics. Because when we talked here about how this will increase different issues, increase economics and increase communication, so it will also increase traffic. And before you are on this wonderful bridge, so there are many places you have to bypass during that time. But truly interesting, inspiring, and very good relationship to start working with you. Great, thanks.
Not a question. Yeah, yes, actually a question now for once, not a comment. But we have to take the opportunity now when you're here, and we have the honor to have you here in the Kvarken region. A simple question: how does these underwater currents affect these pillars? Are they worse than the ice, or is the ice the biggest challenge for the pillars?
In the Kvarken region, currents are not a challenge at all for the pillars, but waves are a challenge, but not here in Kvarken region, because here you have so limited fetches. You have to have a perfect storm for perfect direction to get significant waves, and even those are not big. So you have to consider waves when you construct. But ice and seasonal timetable, those are the challenges.
Rita.
What about energy and offshore opportunity? You didn't have anything here, but we've heard earlier that maybe this bridge could include some energy issues.
Well, I have heard about energy issues. I said that add them later. Don't mess with the schedule. And then there is the issue of wind farms, and I'm not allowed to speak a word of that issue because of my contracts with other people. But I know the bottom, and I have been doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask the same thing, because we have talked a lot about maybe adding some kind of new connections what comes to electricity between Finland and Sweden. We know that Fingrid will build something in the 2030s. It might go from the Rauma region towards Stockholm, but it also might go here in the Kvarken region. And in terms of financing, if we get 500 million euros extra or something to add this, but I got your signal that maybe now we should focus on this and add them on later, and also what comes to potential wind farms and maybe even gas from Norway, who knows? That's also something that has a geopolitical dimension.
What you can do is make reservations, things beforehand, how you do it with the bridge.
Yeah.
How could we include the ordinary citizen both in Sweden and Finland to take part of this discussion?
I think it's very important that we involve all the people, as we have done also with the Kvarken ferry that we put in the water yesterday. And that's sometimes people ask me, is this something that will somehow will be away from the ferry, or do they compete? I would say no. The ferry is there not because of the ferry itself, but because of connecting people, businesses, healthcare, education. And when we do this, then we will have also the road or the fixed link or the Kvarken way or whatever we call it. So this is something that's part of the same project actually, and it's very important also to involve the local citizens in the planning, in the discussions, and not least from the environmental perspective. And also the bureaucrats you talk very lovely about.
Any more comments? Last comments? No? Yes? Sture?
Maybe not a comment, but a figure, a data, which should be in our heads. Doesn't tell everything, but it is good to follow up. The last estimates in Europe, average cost in logistics for any kind of industrial process is 13%. The average cost for logistics in Vasa is 17% of the turnover. So if you would like to have industrial processes, let it be battery factories, let it be any kind of products, we have a disadvantage of 4%. If, look now, we have now an export volume of 5 billion per year, and we are bearing an extra cost of 4%. That is 200 million euro per year. Of course, not all of the turnover is equipments, but most of the logistic cost is purely related to this. And we should have an ambition, we should, not I only, everybody here, also in Mustasaari, should have an ambition to raise this level from 5 billion to 10 billion if we want to be on the same level in the world after 10 years. And then we have a figure of extra cost for the logistics, which is 400 million per year. And this is then a concrete figure to start to understand what brings the bridge. Please take this into consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Eranti and Mr. Strand. And thank you for this afternoon on behalf of the Kvarken Council. Thank you for active participation, and you that are following us through video stream today, thank you. We have talked about electric aviation, talked about fixed connections, we talked about Gigavasa and battery factories, we talked about the future and the need for new innovations. Let's take the next step, as Sture said. And Sture will have the last words today. Welcome, Sture. The floor is yours.
Okay, we have had since Wednesday up to today 12 sessions. Maybe we shouldn't have had them. There is COVID. Everybody afraid of virus. Maybe we shouldn't have it, as in the most places of Finland today. We decided we must have it. Why? Independent of COVID, about 750 people have been taking part in our 12 events. Oh, that's quite good in COVID times. But I started to calculate which decision we have made during these days. What does it really give the people here in the area? Because what we have decided are things which should be implemented within 1 year. And when we start to go through what we decided on Wednesday to implement in 1 year time, what we decided on Thursday to implement in 1 year time, what we have decided yesterday to perform, what we are talking about today is things which are longer than 1 year. So I don't include the bridge in this calculation. But when we include only those issues which can be performed within 1 day, we are talking about effects of 2-3 billion euro. It means we are impacting the life for not only hundreds of thousands, we are talking about the life for 1 million Finnish people. So that's the reason why I decided not to stop this event because of the COVID. You understand now, really, reaalitalous kuntoon, reaalekonomiin chic. And I am happy to see that we performed and we have with great success also gone through. And let's keep this bridge as an added value. Thank you. Now, the official part is over. There is, for those who are interested, a possibility also to take part in later in the evening to a music event, but that will start 7 o'clock. And on top of this, I wanted also to inform you that as of now, it looks like that this event, which has been, the program has been circulating on even in Stockholm, in the Svenska Dagbladet, etc., toimitus, the reduction, it has been circulated in Helsinki in many places. And the question people are now putting, and which I consider as huge importance, how comes that in Vasa, breakthroughs, concrete proposals are coming to the surface much more than anywhere else? And the reason has been the following. We have started, and I'm proud to say that Vasa Innovation Center has been an active part, how to move on in Europe, where stagnation is, let's say, the main feature compared to the rest of the world. We can't avoid to say that we have de facto stagnation compared to the rest of the world. And the things which has been, let's say, presented during this week, how have we done it? We have done it through connecting concrete people. We didn't ask parties to organize. The political parties, we didn't ask them to organize anything. We didn't ask, what you said, bureaucrats, please do this. Then we are taking part.
We do it ourselves.
Exactly. And we have not asked anybody to finance it. And we have not asked even a company, a specific company to be in charge. But we have picked up good people in the companies, picked up good people in the bureaucratic system, good people in the institutions. And then we have been able to solve things which wouldn't have been solved. Not, I can tell you as an example. When we launched the concept of a new football culture in Vasa, the two main players in Vasa were fighting 100 years and never agreed about anything. But they were able now to agree last Thursday, to start a new football culture. Just because we took from one organization the good guys or nice ladies, good ladies, and from the other the same. And then we could reach an agreement. So what we started is a new kind of societal development system. We don't want to destroy the political parties. We don't want to destroy the institutions. We want to help them to overcome their own internal obstacles. That is the main, and I want to say it, there might be new Vasa Innovation Center and this kind of festivals around Finland next year. Hopefully.